lesson. And it's not philosophy in general, it's dealing with missions. Of course, this is our missions emphasis month, and we've had missionaries here just 2 of the weeks. And then we're collecting our faith promise today. So there are, works better if I turn it on. How's that? Okay. Got it? All right. Yeah, so this morning we're talking about missions, but the goal this morning is a little bit different. It is that I want you, as part of our church family, to understand a little bit more about how we do missions, who our missionaries are, and I think when we do that, that helps you understand as a church some of our goals, and then if you have any questions, we want to do that. So I have a couple of things to give you, but I love quizzes, and so this morning we're going to start with a quiz. So, all right? But I tell you what, I'll give you a pen if you'll take the quiz. How's that for a deal? All right? Yeah, I got some new pens. I don't love them, but I don't hate them either, so I'm going to try them out on you. All right? Let's go ahead and pray, and then we'll get started. Lord, we're grateful for your kindness, and we thank you again that we have the opportunity as a church family to be involved in ministry. And I know that our ministry begins in our own Jerusalem, our own circle of influence, and then it extends beyond that to those that we'll reach occasionally. But then, Lord, you've given us the privilege of being involved with people who are going to other places or organizing ministries in other places that we will not be able to go. And so I pray that you'll help us to be active in that and help us to make that a critical part of our ministry here, and not just as a whole, but as individuals, that we would take a real interest in the people that we're able to support. And so thank you for our time this morning. I pray that we would use it profitably and that you would make it something that's profitable to our church family. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, so let's do this first. I have the quiz, and I'm going to pass this one out. Actually, Pastor Cook, will you help me start at the back? And I have the quiz, and if you use Word, you know that sometimes it'll get you. I copied and pasted, and some of them went on one side. Instead of A through whatever on the quiz, it changed the letters, and so I don't know if we'll have enough that it didn't mess up on. But you guys are the smart ones. I'm going to give you this. Yeah, now if I don't give you one, I'm going to say, these aren't the smart people. But yeah. He can read, he just can't hear. Okay. Okay. All right, and I'll also send. Oh, we had enough of the ones with. Yeah. Okay. I think we're good now. All right. Curtis, you want to take a handful, and I'll send some back on the other side as well. If you want a pen, you can take a pen. All right, so I'll give you just a couple of minutes to go down through that and answer those, because this is going to be our discussion guide as well. Now, Bill was up here asking Carol questions, so I don't know if we can count Bill's. He was.
We both had the same person, but he had the first name and I had the last.
Oh, so together you got it. Okay. All right, we'll take another 75 seconds and then we'll go over some of this. I really want to just do the top as much as anything else. I want to see how you do with the matching the missionaries. What was that? Oh, yeah, we should have done it like a candy bar or something, yeah. You get to go first in line at the banquet. Yeah. I haven't used the pen. Did it right? Okay, good. All right. Yeah. I wasn't sure if I liked the colors. All right. Okay. So if you don't want the pen, when you go to a restaurant, give it to the server, because they're always looking for pens to have people sign things, and then we can have advertisement that way. Sneaky, did you say? Yeah? Okay, you ready? All right, let's see how you did. So, matching, number one, in the Philippines we would have the Taclobs, letter G or Q, GQ. Papua New Guinea, Rachel Langendorfer, letter E. Netherlands. What was that? O, yes, yeah, O. So yours is going to be O. Yeah. And Netherlands, that would be either D or N. Okay. Australia. Yeah, yours, that's why I gave, yours will be different. I should have taken yours back, and we had enough to do the other one. The Netherlands is the Van Rhijns. It is letter D or N. In England, Amanda Baker, correct. That's A or K, yep. Japan, Meltons and the Thompsons. We have two families that are in Japan, so it could be C or M. Uruguay, that's the Espinels. We prayed for them in the prayer time this morning, so H or R. Chaplain Endorser, that is Willis, letter T or J or T. And then in Brazil, Cordeiro, Tatiana Cordeiro, be F or P. And then the last one in Jordan, Ghassan Haddad, yes. The letter B or L. All right? Okay, did you get them all, Tyler? What was it? Flip the first two. Okay. How many people got them all? Very good. Okay. More of you than I expected, actually. Great. Well, I'm encouraged by that. Yeah. All right. So that group can go first in the line when we get to the dinner today. Yeah. After the senior. Okay. So on the rest of the questions, these are questions that I wanted to go over, because sometimes we have a church program and we do it, and people don't sometimes know what we're doing. They know that we're doing something, but they don't necessarily know what. And you do have to have a philosophy of missions as a church, because we are supporting people to go to a field and do some kind of work. And so there are a number of things that you have to decide from the outset about a mission program at a church. Some of you have been at our church, for a long time, most of your life. There are other people who have come from other churches, and so you've had experience with a couple of other ministries and how they did their missions program. Some have come from churches that didn't have a missions program, that they never heard of such a thing, and so it's completely different from what they do. So let me go down the list, and as we go down, feel free to ask questions and give any input or notes that you have as well. But let's look at number one. Where do missionaries stay while visiting the church? So, Andy? In the prophet's chamber. Yeah. I'm curious, how many people here have not been to the prophet's chamber? You've never been in it. Okay? All right, today, we're going to do it anyway because we're going to have the missions banquet. Today, during the missions banquet, I'm going to try to remember to say something about it. You can go look. Now, the reason that Carol says not today is because the Cox family was here last week. They didn't leave until Saturday, I don't think. They were here until Saturday, so we haven't had time to clean it and get it all prepared. It's usually really sharp. But if you haven't seen it, it's a really, really nice place to stay. And so when a missionary travels, you can imagine, let's say the Lord called John and Natalie to the mission field. How many kids do they have? And what ages? I don't know, how old is? 5 and under. If you had a family, and usually a lot of times it is younger families that are going to the mission field. I like for a missionary to be able to go work in a church for a little while and then go to the mission field. And so sometimes they have young children. And so if John and Natalie were going to go to the mission field and they're traveling to a church, they have 3 little kids, what are your worries as a missionary? From the missionary's perspective, what are your concerns? What is it? Well, affording it would be one thing. Yeah. How am I going to pay for this? Okay. What else? What was it? All right. Safety would be a big thing. Yeah. I want the safety of my kids. Okay. Todd? Is there room to bring my kids? Where is this church going to put me? Are they going to put me in a house with some elderly couple that hates noise? All right? And legitimately, and I understand, because Christy and I love our grandkids when they come, and sometimes when they go. There's noise. We're used to, Stephanie's not real noisy, so we're good with that. But if you're a missionary, you're wondering, where are they going to put me? Am I going to have to be on pins and needles the whole time, trying to keep my kids quiet? Are they going to be able to run around? Are we going to be able to relax? Where are we going to stay? Are we going to get a good night's sleep the night before? And so it's a legitimate thing. All right? As a church, what are we concerned about when a missionary comes with 3 kids? How many of you have kept missionaries? You have any? All right. Anything you can think of that would be concerns? Christy, can you think of any concerns? Not a one. We have kept a lot of missionaries. And we had a missionary family one time, a long time ago, not one you would know right now. And they needed to stay for a few days, and we're pretty well set up for it at the house. I think they were in the basement maybe. We have an apartment down there, and it's pretty nice. But they were staying for several days, and we knew some of their family, and so they stayed. They had, I don't know, it seemed like 10 kids, but it was at least 2, maybe 3. And I would go up mid-morning and clean up the cereal that was all over the place. Christy would go up at noon and clean up the food that was all over the place. And then in the evening, we would just try to survive. We had a dishwasher that had the buttons on it. We had to buy a new dishwasher after they left because they fried it. And we kept telling them they can't just stand there and push the buttons. Oh, okay. It was a disaster, and we obviously did not take them on for support. But that's one of the concerns you have, is that will you get somebody there who just can't control their kids. But the prophet's chamber is really nice. And it, like last week was a good example of it. The Cox family was here. They were at our church. They're from Missouri, so to drive back to Missouri isn't practical. To get a motel would cost them a fortune. And then they were going to, I don't remember, but it was a couple of hours from here for a service today. And so we're able to provide them nice housing. And if their kids want to run around, got a whole gymnasium down there you can run around in. And we put food up there. We stock a refrigerator with some food. And so it's a really nice situation for them. It's really a blessing for the missionaries. It's a blessing for us. What is one negative that you can think of to having a prophet's chamber and people not staying in a home? Natalie?
You might not get the opportunity to build a relationship. If somebody's hosting a missionary,
Right.
then you have to talk after dinner.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the blessings would be that if, say, Jeff and Mary, they have an extra bedroom, and I say, hey, the Coxers are going to be here. Now, if I said the Coxers are going to be here for a week, they might go, But if somebody's going to be here a Friday night or a Saturday night and maybe Sunday night, and it's Ben Sinclair the week before. He was here by himself, really pleasant man. And he stays with Jeff and Mary. Well, by the time he leaves Monday morning, they have developed a real closeness with him. They know his ministry, they know him, they know about his family. So that's one of the negatives to having a prophet's chamber, is that your church family doesn't get to know people as well. I think the trade-off is worth it because everybody gets to relax when you have the prophet's chamber. So it's really a benefit. All right, question number 2 here. Who is our longest tenured missionary? Which one have we supported for the longest time, in other words? And I have some notes in my office, but I think I can remember this. So, all right. So who do you think? Starts with an E? All right, Eddie Woodfield. Correct. He is one of them. Okay. Oh, no, it's not on the list. Sorry. Yeah, sorry, Mary. Yeah. Yeah. Who did you pick? You put who down? Espinel? Willis, Minnick, Espinel, Tacklob, Courtier, Langendorf, or Van Ryn? Nope. It would be Melton. Yeah. Tim Melton. I think in the 90s we supported. I think, but I'm not sure about that. We have the Eddie Woodfield, who just retired. And so we've stopped his support, and so he has retired and needs to at this point. Physically, his health is not real good. Who's the other one? There's one more. Who is it? It's not an organ. Well, there is one that's connected with an organization. Who are you thinking? CLA, Christian Law Association, David Gibbs Jr. The church started supporting them before I came, so back in the 1980s. And then the other one is, and I can't remember his name right now. He's retired, but he's still doing relief work. Who am I thinking of? Scrimshires, yeah. Scrimshires, yeah.
But we don't support him.
We do still support him.
I don't remember signing checks for him.
Are you sure? It may be a direct deposit.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so we may have a direct deposit with him. But he is retired. He is one of those that's a little bit of a dilemma for me. I didn't put this question on here, but what do you do with a retired missionary? Do you still support them? And some of them were back in the day where they didn't plan for this, and so it's a really difficult spot that we find ourselves in at times. So we do support him a little bit. I don't remember for how much. But those are our 3 longest tenured missionaries. Scrimshire is basically retired, although he still does go do some relief work on mission fields. And then Eddie Woodfield's retiring. David Gibbs Jr. is with Christian Law Association, and he is still very active, still preaching, and I see him occasionally, but very, very active. Yeah, he is a dynamic preacher. Yeah, he is one you would thoroughly enjoy hearing.
Pastor, how many missionaries do you think do not plan for
At this point, Bill asked, how many do not plan for retirement? At this point, I don't think it's very many. I've been on a couple of mission boards, and that's the board that controls the mission board. And it used to be that they didn't require a missionary to have a retirement. In the early days, back with BIMIs, one of the older ones, like when Scrimshire was there, they didn't require that. They were just like, I'm gonna die on the field, and the Lord's going to take care of me, and churches are going to take care of me, and so they didn't plan, and a lot of them even opted out of Social Security, and so it was great in theory, but then what happened was that at the end of their ability to be a missionary, the country doesn't want them to stay, so they come home. They don't have any place to live. All of the people they knew in the church that they left, what happened to them? They're dead. And so you've got a new group of people who don't know this missionary, and he's thinking this church is going to continue to support him. While he's been on the mission field, people have moved or died, pastor has changed, philosophy has changed, and he doesn't have anything. And a lot of missionaries ran into that. And so we've tried to be really fair with our missionaries and take care of them as long as we could. But now, almost every mission board that I know of requires a missionary to have a retirement. And I think that's right. I think they should. And so I'm glad that we're out of that at this point. All right, how many missionaries does Keystone support? What numbers do you have? Let's see. Ruth, what do you have? 44? Okay. Let's see. Who else am I going to ask? Let's see. Patrick, how many did you say? 47. Okay. All right. Anybody else want to jump in there? Kathy? 27 is the correct number. Yes. 27, and it's 27 ministries and missionaries, because there are a couple of ministries that we support that aren't a specific missionary. We try to connect a name with everything. For example, Foundations Baptist Fellowship International is an organization, and they publish the Frontline magazine. That's what we support, and Kevin Shaw is the president of it. And so we connect his name with it. And then we have Christian Law Association, NCLL, which is National Center for Life and Liberty. Those are two law organizations that protect ministries. And so we have 27 of those. I did not look. I think at one time our church was up around 50 before I came. And there were two. This is philosophical. So you have some things as a church you have to figure out. Did anybody ever go into a church that one of their brag, but I don't say that in a bad word, one of the things that they would say was, Todd, you know what I'm going to say? What is it?
We support 194 missionaries.
Okay, 194 missionaries. And what would you ask them? For how much? $5. All right, 194 missionaries, and we support them each for $50, let's say. You know, at some point you have to look at the finances of it, because you can't have 194 missionaries reporting to your church. I mean, if you're an extremely large church, maybe. But you don't have time in your schedule to have them all report. And if you're only supporting them for that much, to travel here and report and then go somewhere else, that costs a lot of money. And so you don't want to make it financial. You do have your prayer support, but you've got to be careful about that. The other thing that I've heard churches say is the sun never sets on our missionaries. In other words, they put a map up and they say you can go around the world and there's always a missionary working every hour of the day. All right, I mean, it's cool, but I don't know that is our guiding philosophy. So as a church, we have to decide, all right, do we support more missionaries for less dollars? So let's say we had 50 missionaries and we support them for $100, or do we do 25 missionaries for $200? Give me the pros and cons. Let's say, Todd?
I'll give you the con. That's the pros.
Okay.
The con is, if you're
Right. Yeah. So if we're supporting one missionary from their perspective, and let's say that we have 10% of their support, so we support them for $500 a month, and something happens to our church, then they've lost 10% of their support. If they've got 200 churches supporting them at $100 a month, the chances of losing the support may be less. Okay, that's one thing they have to consider. Although they would take the 500, yeah, from the one church, yeah. So, all right, what else? Pros and cons. If you have a lot of missionaries and you support them for less money, what are the pros of that? What are the good things about it? Todd?
I'll answer if nobody else will.
Yeah.
If you have a lot of missionaries with a lower amount of support, you have a lot more people out there doing some work.
Okay.
You're a part of more ministries. That's a plus.
Yeah, we're a part of a lot of ministries. Okay, let's think of the other side. What are the benefits then of fewer missionaries, more money? Andy?
It's easier to keep track of their ministry.
Okay. Easier for who to keep track of their ministry? For who? For whom?
It's for us to keep
All right.
track of what their
Yeah. 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 Okay, what they're preaching? All right. Pat, what were you going to say?
Kind of along the same lines, but when you don't have as many missionaries, you can take you can be more involved.
Yes.
And have a better connection with those.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you have fewer missionaries, you're going to know those missionaries better. And generally, if we're supporting them for more money, we're going to have more interest in them. And so that has been the direction I have gone more than having a lot of missionaries. So I would rather have not fewer than what we have, but fewer missionaries supporting for more money than a ton of missionaries and be able to say, we support 100 ministries. Now, I don't know 60 of them, but we're supporting them. So I want to know our missionaries. I want our church family to know our missionaries so that we can really, truly know them. Carol?
Even keeping up with praying for them.
Right.
So many,
Right.
it's hard, and you don't know what's going on with all of them.
Yes.
It's hard.
Right. It is. It becomes very difficult. Okay, so let's go to number 4. Which mission board represents more of our missionaries than any other? Anybody get this? Ruth? Yes, I mentioned this 2 weeks ago. Baptist World Mission is the one that represents more than any other, and probably one of the ones that we align with the most. Were you going to say something?
Is the second most, do you know the second most?
Probably GFA.
That's what I,
Okay, I would say it's Gospel Fellowship Association would probably be second, but I don't know that for sure. Number 5, how often does our office, I mean by that our church, how often does our church regularly communicate with our missionaries?
monthly.
All right, monthly, okay.
My guess was that we are contacting missionaries every week, but each one probably gets contacted about once a month. Because
Okay.
we ask for their prayer, when they're the prayer focus, we ask for their requests.
Okay, all right. Anybody else? It is probably a little less than once a month. If you think about what we're doing with the prayer on the back, we leave them on there for 2 weeks. And so it is about once every 2 to 2.5 months, which you look at and think, wow, we don't hear from them for 2 months. Well, 2 months goes by really quickly. I will tell you that our missionaries will say to us that we probably communicate as a church with them more than 99% of their churches. 99% of churches have no current idea what's going on. They're supporting somebody and they would like to know, but they don't have a way to do it. So for us, Carol emails a missionary and says, hey, we're going to be praying for you for the next 2 weeks. What are your specific requests? What's going on? And so they'll send us back an email, and I have had Carol combine them or reduce them to 3 generally so that we can keep them, a little bit shorter. But they send us an email back so we know what's going on in that ministry regularly. And so it's something they enjoy and something we benefit from, that we're getting to know them. We even do that with the organizations. We email CLA. And they send us an email back and tell us, here's what we're working on right now. Here's how you can pray for us. Number 6, how much money do we give a visiting missionary? So 2 weeks ago, Ben Sinclair came. Last week, we had the Cox family here. A lot of churches, and we have done this some, a lot of churches will take a love offering at the end of the service and give it to that missionary, which I think is good. I have tried to limit offerings and have people just give in one offering. But how much do we give a missionary when they come? How much would you give them? Let's say Ben Sinclair, he was here 2 weeks ago and took his time, came for the weekend. Should we give him anything?
Yes.
Okay. How much do we give him? You're not allowed to answer because you signed the checks.
I was gonna, okay.
All right. What do you think? How much would you give Ben Sinclair for coming? Todd?
$378.22.
$378.22. All right. All right. Who else? How much would you give him?
Well, is he one that we support regularly?
We do not support Ben. No. So he's not one we support. And remember, he was fully supported. He doesn't need more support. He's representing Baptist World Mission. So he's just coming, because I wanted him to come. All right? Good. Okay. Todd?
You might explain, to help people visualize it, you might explain some of what financially a missionary incurs when they come here.
Okay. All right. I'm hoping people will think through that, but you are correct. We're gonna ask that. All right. Somebody else. Let's see. Dave, how much would you give Ben Sinclair when he comes?
I think it depends too on the missionaries, the family, the size of the family, their needs.
Absolutely.
A single person coming like that, maybe 300 to 500.
Okay. All right. Okay. Anybody else? If I remember correctly, you remember, was it 300 or 350?
300.
300. We gave him 300. So Todd was pretty close. What is it he needs money for, Todd? Why would we give him money if he's already fully supported?
Well, and if he's driving here, he has to pay for his gas. He's got vehicle expenses that come with that. If he's flying, he's got a plane ticket.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, those associated things. And then while he's here, even though we try and provide things for them, we take them to dinner and people we kind of stock the prophet's chamber if they're staying there with
Mhm.
snacks and things. But they also have just the expenses. Some guy just addicted to Starbucks coffee and the Keurig just doesn't do it for it.
Gotta have it, right? Yeah, you have Ben Sinclair drove from Alabama to here. Many of you traveled? Cheap, isn't it? Yeah, no problem. To buy gasoline, buy a car, eat on the way. Yeah. But he was coming, and I knew this. Ben was coming, and he was doing other things. So he was coming from Alabama. He was stopping. He was interviewing somebody. He was coming to our church. He was going to another church. So those expenses get spread out among those churches. So I didn't feel like we had to bear the burden of the whole thing. But we want to take care of his expenses, and then we want to be an encouragement to him. And so I felt 300 was okay. After I had them write the check, I kind of felt like I should have been closer to Todd's, where I thought, probably should have gone more 350 for Ben. I think that would be an encouragement to him.
Never hurts you to go a little over.
It never hurts to be generous to people, because they will. I will tell you this. They will go to some church and they'll present and put everything they have into it, and they'll leave Monday morning with how much? Nobody's thinking about this, and they'll leave with nothing. And that wouldn't hurt Ben Sinclair. The Coxes last week, it would, because they're not fully supported. They're at about 60%. So last week, I gave the Coxes $350, but that I am sending them another check because I didn't realize they were driving from Missouri. Somehow I thought they were like at South Carolina or somewhere. They were driving further than I thought, and so I'm going to send them a little more, because I feel like we should. All right, so we do try to take care of our missionaries, and that comes out of our mission offering. Number 7, what is our yearly budget for missionary support?
60,000.
It's right around 60,000, yeah. 55 to 60,000 is what our budget is. Number 8, what is the monthly support for most of our missionaries. They're not all even. But if we have Tatiana Cordeiro in Brazil, we have in the Netherlands, we have a foreign missionary. How much do we support that missionary for? Does anybody know?
Approximately $230 a month.
Okay, you're a little high. Yeah. It's 175 right now. We have actually tried to increase it. Now, we haven't done our budget for next year, but what do you want at your job with your salary? A raise. Missionaries have this struggle because sometimes I don't even think about that, but here's a missionary and he raises this amount of money, and he goes to the mission field, and while he's on the mission field, usually you have a couple of churches that fade or drop, and then you come back, and inflation, Biden says it's no problem at all, so he's okay. But inflation has hit, and now that 175 doesn't go nearly as far as it did. So what should we do as a church? We should have a regular increase in that support. And we have done that. We've not been real consistent with it, but Lord willing, this year we'll try to add to our missionary support. We'll try to increase the amount that we give them a little bit. We can't do that for, across the board for everyone, but our church can do the right thing. We need to think about that as a church. And I would much rather be up around 250 per missionary that we were giving them. I feel like that would be better for us. We're running out of time, so number 9, who decides which missionaries present their ministry at our church?
You.
I do, yeah. Now, somebody can give me a suggestion, but why is that unilateral? Why can't you say, hey, I have a friend, and I want him to present his ministry at Keystone Baptist Church? Natalie?
Well, it's your responsibility to make sure what's coming out of the pulpit
Mhm.
is biblically sound. So you have to vet whoever's going to be speaking in front of the church.
I do that with everybody who's speaking. Yeah. And that is one of my responsibilities. It's not a power thing. And truly, I've had people say, hey, I have this friend that's a missionary, and Charles will recommend guys from IPM. That's great. And we'll look at them and have them. We had Joe and Sam's brother-in-law and sister are in the mission field. And they're like second on our list to take on for support. So I will entertain suggestions from people, but it is my responsibility to vet these people and say, okay, what are they doing? What is their ministry? What are they planning to do? Let me go to the last question, then let me elaborate on that a little bit. Who decides which missionaries Keystone Baptist Church supports?
Deacons and trustees.
Todd?
It's a combination. After hearing them present their ministry and having spent time around them, you will make a recommendation to the deacons, and then ultimately that comes before the congregation.
Yes, comes before the congregation, not for a vote, but we put in our bulletin, hey, the deacons and trustees have recommended that we take on Ben Sinclair for support. And we don't vote on it. And there is a reason behind that. We're not going to have time to get in that today. But I will go to the deacons and trustees and say, hey, I think this missionary is one that would fit well with our missions program. And there have been a couple of missionaries, and I've said that. And right now we have 2 waiting, but we don't have the money to do that. And so we're waiting on that. But I'll recommend to the deacons and trustees that we do this. They'll give me their input. We usually are very much in agreement on that. And then we'll put it in the bulletin that we're planning to do that. And I do that because if I put it in the bulletin and Pat knows this guy and he said, well, wait a minute, did you know he robbed a bank 5 years ago? Well, I want to know that. And then we could get input from our church family. But here's the thing that we have to be careful of with missionaries. A missionary could come in and he could give a fantastic presentation. And then after the presentation, we say, okay, all those in favor of supporting him, say aye. Yeah. Is he necessarily the best missionary? No. He may be a flash in the pan. We want a guy who's going to be a Tim Melton who just consistently works. We want a Matthias Espinel that's just going to consistently do what he does. And you have to remember that not every missionary is going to be somebody our church can support. That doesn't mean we don't like them. That just means that we've decided this one may not be best for us. And last week would be a good example. The Cox's great presentation and really interesting to listen to. But there would be a couple of things that I looked at and said, I'm not sure that particular ministry is the one that our church is going to be supporting. And there would be some reasons that I would tell you that. I'll share those with the deacons and trustees. But I look at that, I spent time with him, talked with him, and said, not that I don't like him, not that I don't think he'll do a good job, but there's some things that concerned me about what he was planning or didn't have a plan to do, I might say. I don't think he knows what he's going to do, and so that was one of the things that concerned me with that particular missionary. So we have to look at that, and you can't do missionaries based on popularity. You have to do them based on what's at the core of what they're doing. Ultimately, what we want to do as a church is we want to support missionaries that are planting churches that are like ours. So if you went over to the Netherlands, that I could say to you, I recommend you go to the Van Ryn's church, so that we're supporting churches that would be like ours. All right, Pastor Cook, will you help me? And Bill, can I get you to help me as well? This is a list of our missionaries and all of their information. We put it in a graph form just so that you'll have it and be able to pray for them effectively. Yes, ma'am.
So would you still invite them to come even though you know you can't support them?
Well, no. And Mary asked the question, I still invite them to come even though I know that we can't support them. Sometimes there are things I don't learn until they're here. So, for example, the Coxes last week, he told me he was going to Morocco, but there were a couple of things that I learned while he was here. They're not bad things, but they're not things that I think are positive things. Yeah, so sometimes, I've already vetted them, talked with them, and know a lot about them, but when you meet them in person, you learn more about them and learn things. And then at that point you say, wait a minute, his family's a disaster, or he doesn't really know what he's doing in the ministry. We had another guy like this one time that he had a lot of plans, had a lot of dreams, but no plans. And so you have to discern that. Okay, we're late.